You're listening to the top cheating audio stories. Enjoy your listening experience. I honestly can't believe I'm putting this out there, telling the entire internet about my life, my marriage, my family. But what do you do when your world flips upside down and nothing makes sense anymore? You need a way to get it out, or it eats you alive. So yeah, here I am, writing this, still trying to wrap my head around it. Never thought I'd be the guy telling strangers about how his life unraveled. But here we go. My name's Mike. I'm 33, an electrician. Been doing it for about 10 years now. It's a good job, keeps me busy, pays the bills. I work long hours, crawling through attics, fixing up old wiring in houses, making sure people can turn their damn lights on. It's hard, honest work, and I don't mind it. It's routine, predictable. I go to work, come home to my wife, Laura, and our 2 kids, Emma and Logan. We live in Pittsburgh, nothing fancy, just a 3-bedroom house in a neighborhood where everyone knows each other's business. Laura, she's 30. She works at a local diner. You know, the kind of place where you order eggs and bacon and the waitresses call you Han. She's been there for years now. On the side, she does some makeup and hairstyling for weddings whenever she can pick up the extra work. It helps with 2 kids running around, especially Logan, who's 5 and still acts like he's got a sugar-for drip running through him. Emma's older, 8, already trying to be all grown up. She asks a million questions a day, sharp as a tack, that kid. We're a typical middle-class family. My days are spent at work, and nights? Well, they're a mix of family dinners, TV shows, and trying to catch up on sleep. Me and Laura, we've been married for 10 years now. Things are steady, I guess. But that spark, the one we used to have when we first got together, that's been gone for a while. We love each other. At least, I thought we did, but it's not the same. It's just routine like everything else in my life. And here's the thing, I was fine with that. I thought Laura was fine with that too. I mean, we're both busy. The kids take up so much of our time. And after a long day at work, who has the energy for romance? Sure, we still have sex, but it's like clockwork. Nothing exciting, just something we do out of habit. But I figured that's what happens after 10 years, right? You settle into a groove, things slow down, but that's normal. At least that's what I told myself. Looking back, maybe I should have noticed the cracks. It wasn't like Laura ever complained directly. But there were signs. Small ones, sure, but they were there. I guess I didn't see them because I didn't want to. It started off slow, you know, little things. Laura would come home late from work or her side gigs. More than usual. She'd shrug it off, say she got caught up at the diner or was helping a bride get ready for a big day. I didn't question it, because why would I? I trusted her. We've been together for over a decade. She's my wife. But then I started noticing how distant she'd become. She'd sit on the couch next to me, scrolling through her phone, barely even looking up. When I'd ask her about her day, she'd give me short answers, like she couldn't be bothered to have a real conversation. Sometimes, she'd just shrug, say she was tired and head to bed early. Other nights, she stayed up way later than me, just sitting there with that damn phone in her hand. There was one time I asked her straight up, "Everything all right? You've been kinda off lately." She gave me this weird look, almost like I'd caught her doing something wrong, then laughed it off. "I'm fine, Mike. Just work's been exhausting. You know how it is." And I bought it. I mean, I get it. Work's exhausting for me too. But things kept getting stranger. Then, there's Tyler, my younger brother. He's 28, works as a truck driver. Always been a bit of a wild card, Tyler. He's one of those guys who breezes through life, never sticking with one thing for too long. Jobs, women, whatever, he bounces from one thing to the next. I love him, but he's reckless. Charming though, people love him. He's got this way about him that makes you feel like you've known him forever. Always been like that. Even as a kid, Tyler would swing by our place whenever he had the time, bringing a 6-pack, cracking jokes, being the life of the room. The kids love him. Laura, well, she always laughed at his jokes too, even the dumb ones. Harmless, right? It never bothered me because why would it? He's my brother. One night, Tyler came over for dinner. Just a casual thing, you know? We were all sitting around the table, and Tyler was doing what he always does, flirting with everyone, making offhand comments. At one point, he made this joke about how he was good with his hands, and I swear I caught Laura giving him this look. It wasn't long, maybe just a quick glance, but something about it didn't sit right with me. Good with your hands? Huh? I said, chuckling to hide the strange feeling in my gut. Last time I checked, you couldn't even change a tire. Hey, just because I don't work with wires all day doesn't mean I'm useless, Tyler shot back with a grin. Laura laughed, but it wasn't just a laugh. It was something else, like she was in on a joke that I wasn't part of. I let it go because what else could I do? It's not like I was going to accuse them of anything at the dinner table. It was probably nothing, I told myself, but the feeling stayed. And that's when I started paying attention. Really paying attention. The way Laura would smile a little too brightly when Tyler was around. The way she'd stand just a bit closer to him than necessary. Or how her face would light up when she saw him. It wasn't much, but it was enough to set off alarm bells in my head. Still, I tried to ignore it. Because, again, why would I think the worst? She's my wife. He's my brother. It couldn't be anything more than just friendly banter. But then, the little things started piling up. Laura wasn't just distant, she was careful. Careful about her phone, careful about where she went, what she said. And Tyler? Well, he kept showing up more often, as if he had all the time in the world to hang around. And maybe I'm paranoid, but the way they'd talk, like there was something under the surface that I wasn't privy to, started eating away at me. And one night, I found myself staring at Laura as she slept, thinking about all the small changes. The late nights, the jokes, the looks, the way her smile seemed to widen just a fraction too much when Tyler was around. My stomach twisted in knots, but I told myself I was being ridiculous. I wasn't the jealous type. I wasn't the kind of guy to suspect something like this. But once the seed is planted, it's hard to ignore. You start to see things, notice things that maybe you wouldn't have before. It's like a shadow hanging over everything. And deep down, I knew something was wrong. I just didn't want to face it yet. That was the last night I slept soundly. I wasn't sure what I was expecting to find, but I couldn't let it go. I had to know the truth. I'm not exactly sure what tipped me off first, but there was something gnawing at me, something deep in my gut that wouldn't let go. You ever have one of those feelings where you know something's off, but you can't put your finger on it? I tried to ignore it, push it aside, but it kept coming back, whispering in the back of my head. It didn't help that Laura had become almost careful around me, like she was hiding something. Little things that at first didn't seem like much, but now they felt like puzzle pieces that didn't quite fit, no matter how hard I tried to force them into place. One Saturday afternoon, I was cleaning out the bedroom closet. Laura had taken the kids to her mom's, and I figured I'd get some of the housework done, make myself useful while they were out. I don't know why I decided to tackle the closet, but it was one of those things I'd been meaning to do. Old boxes, clothes we hadn't worn in years, stuff piled up over time. I was moving things around, stacking them in the corner when I knocked over a small box I hadn't noticed before. I bent down to pick it up, and the lid popped off. That's when I saw them, these things. A collection of silicone plugs, different sizes and shapes. My first thought was confusion. I mean, Laura had never mentioned anything like this before. Not once in our 10 years together had she brought up whatever this was. I just stared at them for a while, trying to process what I was looking at. What the hell? I picked one up, turning it over in my hand like it was some foreign object I couldn't quite understand. It wasn't like I was completely naive. I knew what they were, but I didn't get why she had them, or more importantly, why she'd hidden them. We'd never done anything like this. Our sex life, while not dead, had always been, well, straightforward. No surprises. So why was she keeping this from me? I put the box back where I found it, exactly how it had been, like it was some sort of secret I wasn't supposed to uncover. For a second, I considered calling her right then and there, asking her about it. But something held me back. Maybe it was the fact that she'd never once mentioned this side of herself. Maybe it was because I didn't want to hear the answer. The rest of the afternoon, I couldn't shake the thought. Every little thing Laura had been doing over the past few months. Coming home late, avoiding real conversations, her distance started to click into place. This wasn't just about some hidden collection of toys. This was something deeper. She was keeping things from me, things I had no clue about, and it felt like she was slipping away into a life I wasn't part of. That night, when Laura came home with the kids, I couldn't stop watching her. Every move, every smile, every glance she gave me felt different off. It was like I was seeing her for the first time and realizing I didn't really know her at all. We sat down for dinner. The usual chaos of Emma and Logan fighting over the last chicken nugget, Laura trying to referee. But I wasn't paying attention to any of that. My mind was still stuck on the box, on the things inside it, and the fact that I hadn't known they were there. I decided to keep my mouth shut, at least for now. I wasn't ready to confront her yet. What if there was a perfectly reasonable explanation? What if it was all in my head? But the longer I stayed quiet, the more my mind spiraled. Days passed, and I started noticing more odd behaviors. Laura would shift in her seat at the dinner table, carefully squatting down like she was trying not to make contact. I'd catch her wincing slightly when she sat on the couch, a small, almost imperceptible flinch. But it was enough for me to notice. And the distance between us, that was growing wider. We'd go to bed, but she'd make excuses. I'm too tired, or not tonight, Mike. I've got an early morning. I didn't push. I couldn't. But it was becoming more obvious that something was wrong. The intimacy we used to share? Gone. Replaced by awkward silences and moments where she'd just look at me like she wanted to say something but couldn't. One evening, after the kids were asleep, I finally tried to talk to her. "Hey," I said, sitting on the edge of the bed while she was brushing her hair in front of the mirror. "You've seemed, I don't know, a little distant lately. Everything okay?" She paused, just for a split second, but it was long enough for me to notice. Then she gave me this half-hearted smile through the mirror. "I'm fine. Just work, you know? The diner's been busy, and I've got a wedding next weekend. I'm just tired." There was again the same excuse. Work. Tired. Busy. I wanted to push to ask her if there was more, but I didn't. I just nodded, muttered something about hoping things would slow down soon, and let it drop. But the knot in my stomach? It kept getting tighter. I wasn't imagining things. I knew that now. It was one night, maybe a week later, when I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, that everything came together. Laura had already fallen asleep next to me, her breathing steady and soft. My mind wouldn't stop racing. The plugs, the wincing, the distance. It all pointed to something I couldn't ignore anymore. Then Tyler popped into my head. I don't know why, but suddenly every time he'd been around us recently replayed in my mind like a movie reel. The jokes, the laughter, the way Laura would light up when he was there, like she hadn't smiled that way for me in months. I remembered how he'd tease her, little sarcastic comments about being good with his hands, or how lucky she was to have a husband who worked so much. I'd laugh it off, because that's just Tyler being Tyler, right? But now, with everything swirling in my mind, I couldn't help but wonder, had there been something more to it? I wasn't ready to confront either of them. Not yet. I needed proof. Something solid. Because as much as I hated the idea, as much as I wanted to believe I was wrong, the pieces were lining up too perfectly. And if it wasn't Tyler, if it wasn't what I was beginning to suspect, then I had to know what it was. That's when I made the decision to set up the cameras. I wasn't proud of it. Hell, I felt sick even thinking about it. But what choice did I have? I had to know. I wasn't going to sit around and let myself be played for a fool. So I went out one afternoon while Laura was at work and the kids were with my parents. I bought a few small, discreet cameras, the kind you can hide just about anywhere. I felt like a complete scumbag, but desperate times, right? I set them up all over the house. One in the living room, another in our bedroom, and one in the bathroom, the place where Laura had been spending an unusual amount of time lately. I tried to convince myself that I wasn't doing anything wrong, that this was just about protecting myself, about getting to the truth. But deep down, it felt wrong. It felt like I was crossing a line I could never uncross. The first few days, there was nothing. Just footage of Laura going about her day, cleaning the house, playing with the kids, nothing unusual. Part of me wanted to stop, to pull the plug on the whole thing, and forget I'd ever done it. Maybe I was just being paranoid. Maybe this was all in my head, and I was tearing myself apart over nothing. But then one afternoon, while I was at work, I checked the live feed on my phone. I pulled up the camera from the bathroom, and there she was, Laura, standing in front of the mirror, completely naked. I watched as she reached into the cabinet under the sink and pulled out one of those plugs from the box I'd found. My heart started pounding in my chest, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. She stood there for a moment, looking at herself in the mirror, like she was trying to make sure she was alone. And then she bent over slightly, carefully inserting the plug with a practiced motion, like she'd done it 100 times before. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. This was a side of her I'd never known, never even suspected. I felt like I was watching a stranger. She stayed in the bathroom for a while, adjusting the plug, walking around as if she was testing it out. My mind was racing. Why had she never told me about this? Why had she hidden this from me for so long? It wasn't just the act itself. It was the fact that she'd been keeping this whole part of her life secret from me. I'd been her husband for 10 years, and I had no idea who she really was. I wanted to confront her right then, but something stopped me. I wasn't ready. This wasn't enough. There had to be more, and that's when I saw it. The moment that changed everything. A few days later, I was going through the footage again, checking the cameras before heading to bed. That's when I saw him, Tyler. He'd come over earlier that day while I was at work. Laura had been home alone, the kids at school. At first, they were just talking in the living room, laughing like they always did. But then I noticed something different, something that made my stomach drop. Tyler was standing too close to her. Way too close. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, and Laura, she didn't pull away. She didn't laugh it off or push him back. Instead, she leaned into him, just slightly but enough. Enough to make it clear that this wasn't some innocent interaction between in-laws. I watched, frozen, as Tyler moved his hand to her waist, pulling her closer. Laura let him. She wanted him too. And then they disappeared from the living room camera's view, heading toward the bathroom. I switched to the bathroom feed, my heart hammering in my chest. And there they were, Laura and Tyler, in the bathroom, with her using the same damn plug I'd seen her with before. He was the one guiding her, talking to her in a low voice I couldn't quite hear. And she was loving it. Every second, every motion, every touch. My mind went blank. It was like the air had been sucked out of the room, and all I could do was stare at the screen. My wife, my brother, together, doing things she had never even mentioned to me. Things she'd hidden, things she was sharing with him instead. There wasn't any build-up to it, no gradual realization. Just the cold, hard truth staring me in the face. The woman I'd been married to for a decade had been hiding her deepest desires from me, and she was fulfilling them with my own brother. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to scream, to punch something, to break the damn screen in front of me. But instead, I just sat there, numb, as the footage played out. It felt like the ground had dropped out from under me, like everything I thought I knew about my life had been a lie. My wife was cheating on me, with my brother, and she was enjoying every second of it. I turned off the feed and just sat there, staring at the blank screen, trying to process what I'd just seen, trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do next. My world was falling apart, and I didn't know how to stop it. The next morning felt like some kind of twisted dream. I got up, made coffee, went through the motions like I always did. But this wasn't like any other morning. There was no normal anymore, not after what I'd seen the night before. Laura was in the kitchen when I came downstairs, dressed for work, pouring herself a cup of coffee like it was just another day. She glanced up at me and smiled, like nothing had changed. Maybe for her, it hadn't. Maybe this was just another step in the life she'd been living without me. For me, though, everything had changed. I watched her for a moment, feeling the weight of the truth pressing down on me. My wife, my brother, together, in my own house. I could feel the anger bubbling just beneath the surface, but I forced myself to stay calm. This wasn't going to be some shouting match. I wasn't going to explode. No, that would have been too easy for her. Too predictable. Laura, I said, my voice calm, almost too calm. She looked up at me again, her eyes flicking across my face, probably wondering why I was standing there like some kind of statue. Yeah, we need to talk. That was all it took. The smile dropped from her face, and I could see the tension ripple through her. She set her coffee down slowly, like she already knew where this was going, but was trying to delay the inevitable. What's wrong? I didn't answer. Not yet. I just walked over to the kitchen table and sat down, gesturing for her to do the same. She hesitated for a moment, but eventually, she sat across from me, her hands folded in her lap, her shoulders stiff. I took a deep breath, tried to keep my voice steady. I know Laura. Her face didn't change right away, but I could see the flicker of panic in her eyes. Just a flash. But it was enough. She knew exactly what I meant. I let the silence hang between us for a few seconds, watching her squirm, waiting for her to say something. But she didn't. Not yet. I know everything, I said, leaning forward. I found the cameras. I saw the footage. That did it. Laura's face went pale, and she sat up a little straighter, her eyes wide, like a deer caught in headlights. For a second, she looked like she was about to say something, but then her mouth clamped shut, and she just stared at me. You were careful, I said, keeping my voice level. I'll give you that, but not careful enough. She swallowed hard, her hands fidgeting in her lap. Mike, don't. I cut her off, holding up a hand. Don't even try to explain it away. I saw it all, Laura. You and Tyler. I know what's been going on. She flinched at the mention of Tyler's name, and I saw her throat bob as she swallowed again. For a few moments, we just sat there, staring at each other, the silence between us growing thicker by the second. Then, finally, she spoke. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I almost laughed. Almost. Sorry? That's it? You're sorry. She looked down at her hands, twisting her wedding ring around her finger. I didn't want this to happen, Mike. Oh, I'm sure it just slipped in, right? I said, the sarcasm dripping from my words. How long, Laura? How long has this been going on? She shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. It wasn't supposed to. I didn't mean for it to get this far. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms over my chest. Cut the crap. Just tell me the truth. How long? She hesitated, her eyes darting around the room like she was looking for an escape. Finally, she let out a long, shaky breath. A few months. A few months. I repeated, the words feeling foreign in my mouth. And what? You thought I'd never find out? That you could just keep sneaking around behind my back with my own brother? Her head snapped up at that, her voice suddenly sharper, defensive. It wasn't like that. Wasn't like what, Laura? Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like that. I leaned forward again, my eyes locked on hers. You've been lying to me. For months. You've been lying to your kids. And all for what? For him? For Tyler. She flinched at his name again, and for a moment, I thought she was going to deny it. But instead, she let out a shaky breath and nodded. Yes. The word hung in the air between us, heavy, final. I felt my stomach twist, the anger boiling up again, but I forced it back down. I couldn't lose control. Not yet. Why, Laura? I asked, my voice quieter now, more controlled. Why this? She looked down at her hands again, her voice barely more than a whisper. Because he understood me. Understood you? I couldn't help but laugh, the sound bitter and hollow. Understood you? You're telling me you cheated on me with my own brother because he understood you? Her eyes snapped up to meet mine, and there was something in them, something I hadn't seen in a long time. Anger. Resentment. You don't get it, Mike. You never have. I felt my jaw tighten, but I stayed silent, waiting for her to continue. You don't understand me, she said, her voice stronger now. Not like he does. Not like he did. I opened my mouth to respond, but she kept going, the words spilling out now like she couldn't hold them back anymore. I've been trapped, Mike. Trapped in this marriage. Trapped in this life. You don't see me. You never have. You're always working, always focused on everything else but me. And her voice cracked, and she took a shaky breath. I couldn't do it anymore. My chest tightened, but I didn't say anything. I couldn't. Because as much as I wanted to throw it back in her face, to tell her how wrong she was, there was a part of me, a small part, that knew she was right. I had been focused on work. I'd let our marriage drift. But that didn't excuse what she'd done. Not even close. And Tyler? I asked, my voice tight. What? He just swooped in and saved you from your boring life. She looked away, her hands trembling in her lap. He understood what I needed. And what exactly was that? I shot back, unable to stop the venom in my voice. What did Tyler give you that I couldn't? There was a long pause, and when she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Freedom. That one word hit me like a punch to the gut. Freedom. Was that what this was? Was that why she'd done it? To feel free? I want a divorce, she said suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper. But the words hit me like a sledgehammer. I blinked, not sure I'd heard her right. What? I want a divorce, she repeated, her voice steadier now, but her eyes were full of tears. I can't do this anymore, Mike. I'm sorry. For a second, I just sat there, staring at her, the world spinning around me. This wasn't supposed to happen. This wasn't how it was supposed to end. But the way she looked at me, so certain, so resolved, I knew there was no going back. It was over. She'd already made up her mind. The anger, the betrayal, the pain, it all hit me at once, but instead of blowing up, instead of shouting or breaking things, I just sat there numb. Fine, I said, my voice cold and distant, even to my own ears. If that's what you want. Laura looked like she wanted to say something more, like she wanted to explain herself again, but I wasn't interested. I stood up, the chair scraping against the floor, and walked out of the kitchen without another word. I needed air. I needed to get the hell out of there before I lost whatever control I had left. I couldn't look at her. Not now. Not after everything. I walked out to the backyard, the cool morning air hitting me like a slap in the face. I stood there for a long time, staring at nothing, my mind racing in circles. I didn't even know what to think anymore. My wife had just asked for a divorce. My brother had been sleeping with her, and I had no idea what the hell I was supposed to do next. I'd like to say I thought it through before heading out to find Tyler, but I didn't. After Laura dropped the bombshell about wanting a divorce, I couldn't stand to be in the house. My mind was racing in 1,000 directions at once, and all I could think about was him. Tyler, my brother, my own blood, the man I'd trusted, who I'd let into my home, around my wife and kids, completely unaware of what he was doing behind my back. I jumped into my truck, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I wasn't even sure where I was going at first, but it didn't take long to figure it out. I knew exactly where he'd be. Tyler was predictable like that. Every Friday night, he was at the same dive bar with the same group of friends, laughing, drinking, acting like life was just one big joke. Well, tonight the joke was over. I pulled up to the bar, cutting the engine, and just sat there for a minute trying to calm myself down. My heart was pounding in my chest, adrenaline coursing through me, and I wasn't sure if I was about to rip him apart or just lose it completely. I had to be smart about this. I couldn't let him get the upper hand, couldn't let him twist it into something it wasn't. Not after what I'd seen. Not after everything. As I walked into the bar, the familiar scent of stale beer and cigarettes hit me. And sure enough, there he was. Tyler, sitting at a table with a few of his buddies, laughing like he didn't have a care in the world. Like he hadn't just torn apart my life. My hands clenched in a fist at my sides, but I forced myself to stay calm. I couldn't make a scene. Not yet. I walked straight up to his table, not bothering to hide the anger burning inside me. Tyler looked up, a grin spreading across his face when he saw me, completely unaware of what was about to come crashing down on him. "Mike," he called out, raising his beer. "Didn't expect to see you here, man." I didn't say anything. I just stood there staring at him, my fist still clenched, trying to keep my voice steady. One of his buddies, Steve, looked between us, clearly sensing the tension. "You good, man?" he asked, glancing at me nervously. "I need a minute alone with my brother," I said, my voice low but firm. The table went quiet, and Tyler's grin faltered, confusion flickering in his eyes. "What's going on?" "Outside," I said, jerking my head toward the door. Tyler glanced around at his friends, clearly uncomfortable now, but he stood up, grabbing his jacket. "All right, man, take it easy. Let's talk." We walked outside into the cold night air, the sound of laughter and clinking glasses fading behind us. Tyler stopped a few steps away from the bar, shoving his hands into his jacket pockets, looking at me like I'd lost my mind. "What's this about?" he asked, his tone shifting from playful to defensive. I didn't bother with pleasantries. I didn't care about easing into it. I wanted him to feel the impact of my words, to know that I knew everything. "I know about you and Laura." The color drained from his face in an instant. He took a step back, blinking like he hadn't heard me right. "What? What are you talking about?" "Don't," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "Don't even try to lie, Tyler. I know everything. I've seen the footage." His eyes widened, and I could see the gears turning in his head, trying to figure out what I meant. "Footage? I put cameras in the house," I said, stepping closer to him, my voice low and cold. I saw you. With her. In my house. You think you're so fucking slick, but I caught it all. Every disgusting second of it. Tyler's face went pale, and he held up his hands like he was trying to calm me down. Mike, wait, man. It's not what you think. Don't. I cut him off, taking another step toward him. Don't insult me by trying to spin this. I saw you. I saw her. You've been sleeping with my wife. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. For a second, he just stood there, staring at me, clearly trying to figure out how to backpedal his way out of this. But there was no way out. Not this time. I swear, man, it just happened, he said, his voice pleading, desperate. It's not like I planned it, okay? It just one thing led to another, and I cut him off with a sharp, bitter laugh. Oh, so you accidentally fell into my wife? Got it. Thanks for clearing that up. Tyler winced, running a hand through his hair, looking anywhere but at me. Look, Mike, I never wanted this to go down like this. I didn't mean for it to happen. It was a mistake, all right? A huge mistake. A mistake? I repeated, feeling the rage bubbling up again. You've been screwing her for months, Tyler. That's not a fucking mistake. That's a choice. He looked at me, his face twisted in guilt, but I wasn't buying it. I'm sorry, man. I really am. I never wanted to hurt you. He stopped, shaking his head like he didn't even know how to finish that sentence. Don't. I snapped, my voice shaking. Don't you dare try to make this about me. You knew exactly what you were doing. You saw the cracks and you wormed your way in. You played her. He hesitated, his eyes shifting nervously. It wasn't like that, Mike. The hell it wasn't, I said, stepping even closer until we were just inches apart. You manipulated her. You preyed on her insecurities, made her feel like you were the answer to everything. And you did it because you could, because you're Tyler, and you always get away with everything, right? For a moment, he didn't say anything, just stood there, staring at the ground, guilt written all over his face. But there was something else too, something that made my skin crawl. He wasn't just sorry. He was ashamed. Ashamed that he'd been caught. That was it. Not that he'd slept with my wife. Not that he'd shattered our family. But that he'd been caught. I'm sorry, he said again, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I stared at him, feeling the last bit of respect I had for my brother crumble to dust. He didn't mean for it to go this far. He hadn't even meant any of it. To him, it was all just a game, a way to feed his ego, to feel like he had something over me, over her. Here's the deal, I said, my voice low, controlled, but shaking with fury. You stay the hell away from me, from my kids, and from my life. You don't show up at the house, you don't come near Laura, and you don't ever speak to me again. Got it? Tyler's eyes widened, panic flashing across his face. Mike, come on. Got it? I repeated, my voice cold. He swallowed hard and nodded. Yeah, I got it. Without another word, I turned on my heel and walked back to my truck, leaving him standing there in the cold. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I didn't want to see his face. Didn't want to give him the satisfaction of thinking there was even a sliver of forgiveness in me. There wasn't. Not for him. The drive home was a blur, my mind racing with everything that had just happened. But as I pulled into the driveway, another thought hit me. The families. They were going to find out eventually. Hell, I couldn't keep this under wraps forever, and neither could Tyler. As I stepped out of the truck, I glanced over at the house. It was dark inside, quiet. Laura had probably already gone to bed. The kids were with my parents for the night, which was a small relief. They didn't need to be around for what was coming. I knew I had to make some calls. There was no easy way to do it, no way to soften the blow. My parents, her parents, this was going to destroy them. I sat on the porch, staring out into the night, the weight of it all pressing down on me like a boulder. There was no turning back now. The fallout was coming, and there was no way to avoid it. The days after confronting Tyler were a blur. I wasn't even sure what I was feeling anymore. Numbness, anger, betrayal. It all blended together into this constant storm that never seemed to let up. Laura and I hadn't spoken much. We both knew what was coming, and I think she'd already made peace with it. She was ready to move on, to start over. But me? I wasn't there yet. The divorce process kicked off soon enough. It was mechanical, like ripping off a Band-Aid, ugly and necessary. lawyers' paperwork, splitting up our lives into neat little piles of what was hers and what was mine. All the while, Laura kept insisting that the affair wasn't about love. It wasn't about him, she said one evening, her voice steady but cold, as if she'd rehearsed it. It was about me. I felt trapped, and Tyler, he just made me feel free. I stared at her, my jaw tight, trying to keep my temper in check. Free? Free to destroy everything we built? Free to tear this family apart? She didn't flinch, didn't even blink. It wasn't about destroying anything, Mike. It was about finding out who I really am. I didn't want to hurt you, but I had to do this for myself. I wanted to scream, to tell her how selfish that sounded. But what would be the point? The woman I'd married wasn't standing in front of me anymore. She'd made up her mind, and there was no coming back from this. She was resolved, like she'd already written me and the life we had off. We'd reached an impasse, both of us waiting for the divorce papers to make it official. But the anger simmered just below the surface for me, a constant reminder that, no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't let this go. One night, after another round of tense silence at the dinner table, I was clearing out some old files in the office. We were dividing everything down the middle, furniture, accounts, even our digital lives. That's when I stumbled upon something odd. Laura's cosmetology business, the little side gig she had been running to make extra cash, had more than a few discrepancies in the financials. I wasn't usually the one to handle that part of our lives, but after everything, I decided to take a closer look at everything we shared. It didn't take long to notice something was off. There were deposits that didn't make sense, money being transferred in and out of her business account, and it didn't add up with what she was bringing in from her gigs. I frowned, scrolling through transaction after transaction, and then it hit me. This wasn't Laura. She might have kept secrets from me, but she wasn't this sloppy with money. My gut told me to dig deeper. So I did, and that's when I saw his name. Tyler. My damn brother had been siphoning money from her business, moving it through her accounts and into God knows where. He was using Laura's cosmetology side hustle to cover his tracks, laundering money through her account without her even knowing. I stared at the screen, rage boiling over again. This wasn't just about the affair anymore. Tyler hadn't just betrayed me. He'd used Laura, too, manipulated her to the core, all while pretending he cared. I couldn't let this go. Not this time. Tyler wasn't just some cheat. He was a criminal, and Laura, stupid, blind Laura, had been his cover. She might have wanted freedom, but Tyler had shackled her to something far worse without her even realizing it. The next morning, I called Laura into the office, not even bothering to ease into the conversation. I didn't have the patience for it. "Do you know about this?" I asked, spinning the laptop around so she could see the transactions, the trail of dirty money Tyler had left behind. Laura blinked, her face pale as she stared at the screen, clearly confused. What is this?" "You tell me," I said, my voice cold. "Your business. Tyler's name. All this money moving around that doesn't belong to you. Or him." Her mouth opened, but no sound came out at first. I could see the realization dawning in her eyes. She wasn't just blindsided. She was horrified. Mike, I swear, I didn't know. "I figured as much," I said, leaning back in my chair. "But it doesn't change the fact that your lover has been using you to cover his ass. This isn't just about us anymore, Laura. This is about something bigger." She shook her head, her hands trembling as she reached for the laptop, scrolling through the files, trying to make sense of it all. "I don't understand. Why would he?" "Because he could," I snapped. "Because he knew you wouldn't question it. He knew you were too caught up in your little fantasy with him to even notice what he was doing." Her face crumpled, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered what she'd done. What they had done. "I need to call him," she whispered, reaching for her phone. I grabbed her wrist before she could dial. "No, don't. He'll lie to you, just like he always has. We're handling this differently." Before she could argue, there was a knock on the door. A sharp, quick knock, like someone had been waiting for the right moment to step in. I turned to see Megan, Tyler's so-called girlfriend, standing in the doorway. I hadn't expected to see her, let alone right now, but there she was. Her face was set, determined, like she already knew exactly what was going on. "What are you doing here?" I asked, narrowing my eyes. Megan stepped inside, crossing her arms. "I know what Tyler's been up to," she said flatly, glancing between me and Laura. "I've known for a while." Laura looked stunned, but I wasn't. Somehow, I wasn't even surprised anymore. "And you're just telling me now?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. Megan sighed. "Look, I didn't know how bad it was until recently. I thought he was just screwing around with you too, but this is serious." She pointed to the laptop. "He's been doing this for a while, using Laura's business, moving money around. I didn't know how to stop him. I didn't have proof." "And now?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. Megan shrugged, her face hardening. "Now I'm done with him. He's not getting away with this. I don't care what it takes." I glanced at Laura, who looked completely shell-shocked, then back to Megan. "So what are you suggesting?" "We work together," Megan said, stepping closer. "We take him down. Tyler's not just a cheat. He's a con. And if we don't do something, he's going to drag all of us down with him." The anger inside me simmered, but there was a strange sense of relief, too. Tyler had already torn apart our lives. This was my chance to make sure he faced the consequences for everything he'd done. Not just to me, but to Laura, to Megan, to our families. I nodded. "All right, let's do it." What followed was a whirlwind. With Megan's help, we gathered every piece of evidence we could find. Bank records, transactions, phone calls, everything that tied Tyler to his shady dealings. It took time, but slowly, the full extent of his fraud came to light. He'd been siphoning money from more than just Laura's business. He'd been running schemes through multiple accounts, using his charm to con people out of their savings, their livelihoods. By the time we were done, there was enough to bury him. The final confrontation came soon after. Tyler, oblivious to what was coming, showed up at the house, probably expecting more of the same excuses, more of the same apologies. But this time, when I opened the door, he wasn't met with the brother he'd betrayed. He was met with the full force of the mess he'd created. Laura stood behind me, her arms crossed, glaring at him like she'd finally woken up from the fantasy. Megan stood next to her, phone in hand, ready to make the call that would set everything in motion. "You're done, Tyler," I said, my voice calm but final. "It's over." For the first time, I saw a real fear in his eyes. He stammered, tried to talk his way out of it, but it was too late. There was no escaping this. Megan hit dial, and within minutes, the police were there, slapping cuffs on him and reading him his rights. He didn't even try to resist. He knew. He'd lost. In the days that followed, the fallout hit hard. Both of our families were devastated. My parents couldn't believe what had happened. Tyler had always been their golden child, the one who could do no wrong, and now he was sitting in a jail cell, facing years behind bars for fraud and theft. Laura's parents were equally stunned, embarrassed by the scandal, ashamed of how things had played out. As for me, I was drained, empty, but there was a strange sense of peace that came with it too. I'd survived it. Tyler was gone, Laura was leaving, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could finally breathe again. The divorce went through not long after. Laura and I parted ways, not with love or hate, but with a mutual understanding that we were too far gone to ever fix what had broken. She left and I stayed behind, picking up the pieces of my life one day at a time. And as I watched her drive away for the last time, I knew one thing for certain. I was stronger for having survived it all. Thank you for listening to this story. Subscribe to the channel, put a like under the video, and write a comment about how you like this story.